Hi, I'm Erica Martinez with Paragon Accountants, where we help businesses thrive and individuals maximize their financial legacy. Today, Jason and I are talking about a major law change coming in 2022 for employers with 5 or more employees. In this video, we're going to touch on the Secure Act, warn you about compliance and deadlines, and help you avoid penalties, and connect you with the resources you need to implement this in your business. About the Act. The Secure Act became law in December of 2019 to improve retirement saving opportunities for workers, making it easier for small business owners to set up less expensive and easier to administer retirement plans. The law is already in effect, but it's not being enforced for small businesses. But that's about to change soon. California and other states are going to penalize companies with 5 or more employees that do not offer an employer-sponsored retirement plan. California even created its own state-managed retirement fund called Cal Savers. You can technically use this, but I would recommend, or highly recommend, considering other more robust options. Welcome, Jason Ducoffe.
Hey Erica, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to. I actually have my degree in business management and entrepreneurship, and then post-college, was lucky enough my cousin and I opened and ran a business. So very focused on small business. Absolutely love that aspect, and now still get to work with kind of a more consultative side for small businesses, but really focusing on retirement, staying in compliance, and trying to help some Americans retire and businesses grow.
Awesome. Well, that's what we're all about here. So, as I've already mentioned earlier, Cal Savers Plan is an option that I don't necessarily recommend, but I'm not a certified financial planner. What are your thoughts, and what retirement plans do you offer?
Yeah, so in terms of flexibility, the 401k, right, it's by far the most popular. You'll see it. Most people have experience with it, whether or not they're an employer, but maybe they've participated as an employee. Besides the 401k, small businesses, they can do a simple IRA, they can do a SEP IRA, but in terms of, what we're really seeing in popularity, just due to the flexibility and what's going to meet the most needs, it's most likely going to be the 401k. Within that 401k too is nice because there is a Roth component to each plan. So some people like to think, a Roth 401k or traditional safe harbor. There's a lot of different options within that.
That's great. And do you mind elaborating on the Roth versus traditional, just for our audience?
Yeah. So in terms of the 401k, right, there's going to be your traditional, which is going to be your pre-tax, and you're going to have the Roth component, which you can actually contribute towards with your net paycheck. So kind of depends on your overall strategy of what you're trying to do, whether you think you're going to be in a higher tax bracket now, maybe when you retire, a combination of both. So
yeah, and I think that's a great point, and that's why we are a great collaboration, because we as tax professionals, which you guys are not, we can advise our clients on what is eligible based on their income bracket too. So there are multiple variables, but yeah, it's nice to have all of the options available, and then you can select which one is the best fit. Honestly, I've already advised from our last meeting. I've been calling up my clients and advising them to take this mandate into effect January 1, because we all get busy, and in the middle of the year things get, they fall through the cracks, and we're trying to avoid penalties. So I hear you 100%. I mean, we were going to be proactive. I definitely recommend my business owners who fall under that 5 or more employees to just go ahead and pull the trigger. It's goodwill for your staff. They appreciate it, and you're, following the mandate. So it's a double win there.
Right, and especially just a note on that, right? It's hard right now for talent to not only attract but to retain. And so when we're seeing these businesses, they're proactively, they're the first to offer this. Okay, great. Now they see it as a benefit versus being the last person to adopt the retirement. Now you're the last business on the block that's offering something, right? So when they're, maybe looking around, hopefully not, but if they're shopping out to other companies, everyone else has benefits already and you don't, you're behind the curve. Well, even though you're in compliance, from the social view of it, from your employees, like you mentioned, the goodwill is, maybe you're a little bit behind the curve.
Right. And I hear that there's also some credits, some tax credits for implementing this mandate. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's called it's all through the Secure Act, right? Secure is an acronym. Hopefully I nail this first try here, but it's setting each community up for a Retirement Enhancement Act.
Yeah.
Right? And so essentially what it's looking at is how many employees do you have, and then it's basing the credit based on how many of those eligible employees, they're non-highly compensated, which is under about $135,000 in annual salary, and they're non-owners. So it's $250 for each of those employees that don't fall in that bucket, right? It's up to $5,000, and then they'll also do an auto-enroll $500 annual credit. So what we love about that is, the idea of, hey, if you make it a little bit easier for them to participate, so instead of having to do all this paperwork to opt in, they do a little bit of paperwork to opt out. More likely, they'll take the path of least resistance. They'll opt in. It's another $500. So the IRS is trying to help subsidize the cost of setting this up, which is amazing, right? So hopefully we see a lot more of these and they take advantage of it. And the dollar impact for the small business is greatly reduced.
Yeah, totally. Now, what are the penalties for non-compliance? We talked about like the nudge, the kind of incentive to participate in this, which is mandated. So I don't think there's really an election, but there is a penalty. And by the way, I don't think we mentioned to our audience that the deadline, the official deadline is what, June 30th of 2022?
Right. So it's already been in place, right? It got put in place. We started with 100 employee companies, and then now it's 50 employee companies, and we're looking at 5. So the last day, right, when they start looking at who's out of compliance for not having it set up is the end of June this coming year, 2022. Now, it's $250 of a penalty per employee. And if you don't correct it in the 90 days or 180 days, then they add another $500 penalty on top of it. So there's a lot of liability. There's a lot of dollars, that it could end up costing in addition to all the time of running this. But yeah, it's looking at about $250 in the beginning. If you don't, jump in line, if you don't get it done, another $500 per employee. So it can add up quickly.
Sure, yeah. I think most of my clients don't want to spend $1 over what they need. So yeah, you don't want to get penalized on that. Well, let's get down to, I'm sure, what most people want to ask, which is, what about your fees?
It can range. But let's say the business says, you know what, Jason, I want a really low monthly administration cost. And I'm okay with the plan charging a little bit more on an investment fee. We can make that happen, or vice versa. The employer says, you know what, I want this to be little to no cost to my employee, really want to take care of them. They can shift that cost to a hard dollar cost. There's no investment fee, right? So, and everything in between. So it's very much a conversation that we'd love to have and understand what makes sense. Do we want a company match? Do we not? And then we can kind of build this together. And it really only takes about 10 or 15 minutes of a conversation to figure out the right direction to start going. And then we can kind of get the hard dollar. And the nice thing too is once we come to that, what that cost is, the IRS with the Secure Act tax credit will do up to half of it back, and then maybe a little bit more when you start doing the auto enrolls.
Yeah, I actually have done an analysis for one of our clients with your offerings, and it almost pays for itself. So it's a really great incentive and a great plan that California and some other states have rolled out because, let's face it, a lot of small business owners, they're already experiencing so much cost to their bottom line that this makes it nearly impossible, even if they want to offer this to their employees. So I think it's a great option. I think you mentioned something about, the fact that you're not tied to one particular type of investment fund is amazing because, there are wealth managers out there that are specific to one particular kind of plan, and having that variety is key.
Right.
Well, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. I'm sure our listeners gained a ton of information. I'm sure they may have questions for us. So for all of you who have questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. Jason and I will get back to you. We're hopeful that those who do qualify for this mandate, meaning employers with 5 or more employees, that you give us a call, you like our page, you subscribe, you send specifically a comment, and I'll make sure that Jason gets them. And we're here to provide you the information to make an informed and educated decision. So don't forget, June 30th, which I recommend January 1st of 2022, that you implement your retirement plan so that you're in compliance with the CalSavers mandate before it's too late and you incur tons of penalties that no one wants to pay for. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll talk soon.